Derek stood up in that courtroom and told the judge that military service made me an unfit mother, that I put the Army before our daughter, that I was absent, unavailable, and not equipped to be Zoe's primary parent. He had been building this argument for 8 months. His attorney presented it clearly and confidently. And then the judge asked if there were any additional witnesses. My attorney said yes, and Colonel James Reeves, my commanding officer, who had driven 2 hours that morning and had not told me he was coming, stood up 3 rows behind Derek's table and raised his hand. Derek turned around. I watched his face understand what was happening. It took about 3 seconds. Zoe is 7 years old. She has her father's nose and my grandmother's laugh. She calls me Mama when she is happy and Mom when she is serious, and I have learned to pay attention to which one she uses. I have been her primary caregiver since she was 14 months old, through 2 deployments, through the end of my marriage. She knows the name of every person on my team. She has drawn pictures of my soldiers. When I came home from my last deployment, she was waiting at the gate with a sign that said, "Welcome home, Mama Sergeant." I have that sign in a frame on my dresser. Derek and I were together for 5 years, married for 3. He genuinely loved Zoe. I have never doubted that. What he struggled with was the Army. He struggled with the schedule, the deployments, the fact that my career had a priority order that did not put him first. When we separated, he told me he had always known the Army mattered more to me than our marriage. I told him, the Army matters a lot to me. So does our daughter. Those 2 things are not in competition. He did not believe me. That became the custody argument. The custody process started 18 months ago. We tried mediation. Derek's position was fixed. He believed Zoe should live with him, primarily because deployment schedules were destabilizing. He said this without acknowledging that for the first 4 years of Zoe's life, I had been her consistent presence through 2 deployments with my sister and my mother and a support network I had built deliberately because I knew what my job required and I planned for it. Derek's attorney submitted documentation of my deployment dates and declarations, framing my child care support system as evidence of neglect. My sister dropping Zoe at school, neglect. My child care plan, absence. I read these documents and understood the argument clearly. I also understood that every claim was either misleading or missing context I had the documentation to provide. My attorney, Simone Carter, has handled military family law for 15 years. The first thing she told me, your record is your case. We compiled everything. Zoe's school records, medical records, statements from her teacher, her pediatrician, 3 parents from her school, my sister's statement about our child care plan, my service record, a letter from my unit's family readiness officer. We built a file. It was thorough. It was complete. Colonel James Reeves has been my commanding officer for 3 years. He visited our unit's Family Day event and met Zoe, who was 6, and immediately told him about the dog she was trying to get and showed him a drawing she had made of our unit. He crouched to her level and studied the drawing for a full minute and told her she had gotten Sergeant Patterson's ears exactly right. Zoe laughed for 30 seconds. I did not know until the morning of the hearing that he had decided to come. He told me afterward that he did not think permission was the right word for it. The hearing was on a Thursday in November. Derek's attorney made the military argument clearly. He was halfway through when I noticed, 3 rows back, a man in a dark suit sitting very still. Simone called Colonel Reeves as our first witness. Derek turned around when the name was announced. He had not known Reeves was in the room. I watched him turn and turn back and look at his attorney. Colonel Reeves walked to the stand in his dress uniform because, he told me later, if he was going to speak about service in a courtroom, he was going to dress for it. He said, I am here voluntarily, without obligation, because I want to speak on behalf of Staff Sergeant Maya Okafor. Colonel Reeves testified for 22 minutes. He described my service record, my performance evaluations, the way I ran my team. He said that in 3 years, he had never seen my family responsibilities come at the expense of my effectiveness. Then he said, I have met Sergeant Okafor's daughter. She is 7 years old, and she told me about every member of her mother's unit by name. She showed me a drawing. A child who can do that is a child who has a parent who brings her world home, even when that world is hard. That child is not being left behind. She is being brought along. Derek's attorney cross-examined Reeves for 4 minutes. When he asked whether deployment made consistent parenting difficult, Reeves said, "It makes it different." Sergeant Okafor has built a support structure most civilian single parents I know would envy. She has planned for her absences the way she plans for every mission, with documentation, with backups, with communication. The attorney had no follow-up. Zoe's teacher, Miss Wren, testified that Zoe once gave an entire show-and-tell presentation about my deployment that made 2 other children ask if their parents could also be in the Army. She said Zoe spoke about me with a specificity and pride that told her, as a 20-year educator, that the relationship was strong, present, and real. Derek's attorney did not cross-examine Miss Wren. The judge issued her ruling the following Monday. Primary physical custody, Maya Okafor. The ruling noted that military service alone does not constitute a basis for reduced parental fitness, and that the evidence presented demonstrated a well-supported, child-centered parenting arrangement. She said, "This court has seen custody cases where a parent's career was used to mischaracterize their capacity for love. The record in this matter does not support that characterization." I held Simone's arm at the table and did not say anything for about 10 seconds. I called Colonel Reeves that evening. He said, "You don't need to thank me." I said, "You drove 2 hours." He said, "I was concerned that if I told you, you would tell me it wasn't necessary." I said, "I probably would have." He said, "Yes, that's why I didn't tell you." He asked about the ruling. I told him. He said, "Good." Then he said, "That little girl of yours is going to be fine." I said, "I know." He said, "I know you know. I'm just saying it out loud." Zoe and I went to the park the Saturday after the ruling. She ran to me in the parking lot and I held her for a long time with my face in her hair. She said, "Mama, you're squishing me." I said, "I know." We walked the trail and she told me about something a boy in her class had said about frogs that she found scientifically inaccurate and personally offensive. She had opinions, she had evidence, she had a proposed resolution. She is 7 years old and she is already a better project manager than some adults I have worked with. I told her so. She said, "I know, Mama." Zoe got the dog in January. His name is Sergeant Biscuit. He has absolutely no military discipline, but she loves him with a ferocity I recognize because it is the same ferocity she brings to everything she cares about. I am on the other side of the hardest year of my life. My daughter is with me. My record is intact. My CO drove 2 hours because he believed what the record said about me. And Derek gets every other weekend and alternating holidays, and I hope he uses that time well. Zoe deserves a father who is present for the time he has. She deserves everything. She is getting it.